Okay, Shalom Chevra, good to be biyachad. We're kind of wrapping up some of the topics of reincarnation. Just a few things to talk about today. And the Torah is so sweet. It's so good. It says that Tayvli Teiras Picha me'alf ezav v'chesef. That the Torah of Hashem is so sweet, it's better than all the gold and all the wonderful riches of this world. Everything that you could want is in the Torah. It's mosak midvash. It's sweeter than honey. The Torah is so sweet. And like Avram was saying, that when the Mashiach comes, the whole world will know that. And the whole world will just want the sweetness of Torah. Now there's still confusion of what do I want in this world? What am I really looking for? What's really going to make me happy? Most of the things that people think are really going to make them happy don't quite pan out in the end. What's going to make me happy? A new yacht. And then you get the yacht. Okay, you happy on the yacht? Nah, it's okay, but I want two of them. Okay, you got another one. You happy? Nah, because Mr. Jones's yacht, he's got like super yacht. Okay, so you got one of those too. And then, you happy? No, because I don't have a mansion like LeBron. He's got you got a new place. Wow, what a fly pad, LeBron's mansion. You happy now? You got it. No, because my kids are fighting over my man. Who's gonna get the man? The guy's still alive. The kids are already fighting over the mansion. I thought that was what's going to make you happy. I don't know. Maybe a nice vacation. No, a new watch. I knew this. I knew that. The Gemara says, Yesh leimana. If a guy has 100, what does he want? Mosayim, 200. He has 200, he wants 400. Meaning if that's the source of my happiness, there's always going to be somebody richer than me or somebody that has something that I don't have. So that's never going to make me happy. There's no problem with having yachts and mansions. Like we explained, when Mashiach comes, people are going to be wildly rich. But that richness is not going to be the end game. It's just going to be appropriate for people that are learning Torah to be kings and princes. We just don't see that now. We see that as the end game, but like the law of diminishing returns, if anyone's learned economics, if it's something that is physical, it always starts to get less exciting. Right, everybody knows? You want a free Kit Kat bar? Well, you guys are kind of initiated. Everyone's like, Kit Kat, Rabbi? Nah. Like organic blueberry smoothie, then we're talking. Wild blueberries, of course, not the GMO ones. So, okay, eat the Kit Kat bar, 1 to 10, 10. Want another? Sure. 1 to 10? Still a 10. Number 3? 9. Number 4? 8. 8. Number 5? 5. Number 6? I hate Kit Kat. I hate them. I don't want to say I'm disgusted. You just said it was a 10. I can't stand the word Kit Kat. It irks me now. Because it goes like this. Law of diminishing returns, it just gets less and less exciting. So if we think those are the things in this world that are going to make me happy, the yacht, or I think what did the Baskin Robbins guys had? They had this pool like the shape of an ice cream cone. One of the guys there became quite a health dude because he saw that all the hormone, pesticide, herbicide, Darth Vader side, neon, strange, manipulated additives to all the milk that went into the ice cream was like, weird stuff. So he booked it from the family company. And he explains, I grew up with a pool, like an ice cream cone, and seemingly you had the life. But then a person starts to realize life is more than just stuff. Life is about meaning. And that's really what reincarnations are about, is that we can get caught up and lost in this world. Like we mentioned yesterday, we come and we were sent on a mission, but we lost track of why we came. Because a person doesn't necessarily remember where they came from. They don't remember their past lifetimes. Maybe there are certain people that can clue you into it. Everyone's like, who are they? I want to know who they are. Calm down, calm down. It's not like a sci-fi experience that, okay, he's going to take me to past lives. We do have such people, but it's not, you got to have a really good reason why you feel you need to experience that. Otherwise, this is not like a substitute. Now that I realize that we shouldn't be taking so much, LSD anymore, because the Torah is not so, into that. So I got to substitute that with, past life regression experiences. That's also not the idea behind it. There are certain specific, maybe reasons to have a person go to past lives and know certain things, but that's not the mainstream. And because generally we don't know, and you have to kind of figure it out and attune yourself to why I'm here. And like we already mentioned, to the mitzvahs that I'm lacking, the things that I need to do, and maybe the things that I've, God forbid, not done exactly right, to fix those things. And if I have challenges that are reoccurring things, there's themes there. One of the questions that reincarnation will help us answer is the question of why do bad things happen to good people? Because if you live in a one-world reality, then it would make sense, if God is just, that a person who's good is delivered good and a person who's bad is punished. Would that not make sense, my friends? In a one-world reality, if God is just, then the righteous should prosper and the wicked should suffer. But seemingly, it seems to be sometimes a little bit to the contrary. The wicked seem to have these big palaces, and the righteous oftentimes struggle. Well, one of the ways is explained in the Sefer Abahir and Nehemiah Hakana, that when a person experienced something in a past life that has to be paid off, so sometimes what happens is, like we mentioned, it can be paid off in heaven, in Gehenna, or he could come back to this world and go through certain things that will purify that out. And like we mentioned on the first day, speaking about these topics, before you go to bed, the bedtime Shema, what do we all say? I forgive anybody if I have any grudges that I did something to somebody in this lifetime or a past lifetime. Because it could be that that other person, you don't even realize, is going through major challenges because I'm still holding on to a grudge from a past lifetime. And I want to just let that go. I want to let that go. And all of a sudden, that person across the world who you held a grudge against in a past lifetime, all of a sudden his problems start to just ease because he's no longer in need of cleansing those out because you finally forgave him that he did something in a past lifetime. These concepts are so deep and so complex, and like we continue to say, the details are well beyond anybody except the greatest Kabbalists. The general principles we're speaking about in order to get some practical guidance in how to help us. So one of the questions of why bad things might happen is considering reincarnation. As now I know that it's not just dependent on this lifetime, not this previous, it's not your first rodeo. We've been here. There's a long journey. And therefore we're going through things. In Israel we have an expression, the Israelis have a kid. It's funny when English kind of makes its way into Israeli modern culture. So my kids, if something that happens, they're zelo fair, zelo fair. It's so funny, zelo fair. This is not fair. It's not fair. So the older generation, like, fair kid, what, fair? Try telling your great grandparents, if they're alive, they should live until 120. If they're not, they should rest in peace. Tell them, fair. Kid, life's not fair. there's a certain, the earlier generations get this. Like, it's really fair. You work hard and there's nothing else to talk about. Life's not fair. Life's challenging. And it wasn't necessarily because they understood reincarnation. They just understood there's a certain reality in life is because you think in your mind that it should look like this. They understood God is a bigger plan than you could always figure out. But the kids, c'est lo fair. C'est lo fair. Well, if you could explain to the children, reincarnation and past lifetime, don't try that. What are you talking about, Tati? It's crazy talk. This stuff is like, for more advanced audiences. But you start to help a child understand that Hashem has a plan. We don't always understand the details, but Hashem has a big plan, and you start to grow up. For an adult to say c'est lo fair is missing emunah, is missing a clear picture of reality. That's one. What body is resurrected? There's a question about that, specifically because the parts of your soul that come back in resurrections are not necessarily the parts that are fixed, they're the parts that still need to be fixed. The parts that are fixed are still in heaven. And if anyone wonders, well, how does my soul split? A lot of this is based on the idea of Adam. Adam Harishon, we talked about this also in Tanya, Adam Harishon was the source of all the souls. So all the souls of humanity were inside Adam, and they all came out of him. He was like the roots, the trunk of this giant tree. And the main souls are the big branches, and then they keep splitting and splitting and splitting. And then Jacob went down this week to Egypt, and now he's passed away, and now the children are coming forth. And Jacob came down with 70, so his soul split into 70, really the 12 tribes, and 70 souls. And those 70 souls split into how many? 600,000. And those 600,000 souls each split into another 600,000. And souls, you could imagine a tree, the trunk, and then the big branches, the major branches. And each of those branches have other side branches. And essentially you could take a major branch off and plant that in the ground also. And then it's going to grow more. Okay? So the way souls work are always tied into the idea of a tree. And by the way, we're not talking about anything physical here. So you have to do your best to remove physical concepts. We're talking about conceptual concepts here. But the Mekubalim, the Kabbalists, did give us an idea of a tree to use as a bit of an image of, I could see that a tree branches, but it's from the same tree. It's all the same tree, but it's branching. The trunk is the tree. Well, isn't the little twig at the end also the tree? It is. But it's not the tree, but it is the tree. So you can start to see that it's all coming from one source, branching forth. And conceptually, different souls and parts of souls can come back. Also, different parts of souls can, this is something that we're not going to develop so much now, but can impregnate into a person. Meaning to say, your soul's not static. Your soul can receive other soul energy. One of the big ways this happens, by the way, is music. So choose your music wisely. Because if you're listening to a certain type of music, we mentioned this earlier in the previous class about the soul and music, that the soul is very powerfully influenced through music. And the person's soul comes out in the music, and you can pull that some spark of that soul into the person through the music. And therefore, if a person's up at night and he doesn't know why, like he's having certain doubts and problems and belief questions, he's just been listening to Biggie Smalls for the last 10 years. He doesn't realize Biggie's in there, Biggie in his brain, and he's starting to get Biggie Smalls consciousness in his brain, or Dre, or whatever the guy's listening to. You got to be careful, because that is going in, it's creating a consciousness. Much better to create a consciousness through righteous people. How do you do that? By learning their Torahs, by going to visit the Baal Shem Tov in Mezhebich, by learning the Baal Shem Tov, by learning Rashi, by learning the Ramchal, by learning Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. I want to have that by learning Baba Sali and the Ben Ish Chai. I want to have the Orchot Tzaddik. I want to have that moving inside of me. It starts to allow your soul to expand, impregnate, so to speak, and build. So as far as which body, there's a lot of complications in this. We're going to leave it as an open. The soul can, different parts come back, generally the parts that are not fixed, the soul can split, the soul can be added onto and shifted depending on the influences that you do. That's a very practical takeaway. Be careful of things you imbibe spiritually. The last body you're in may be the one, because that's the final one that's getting fixed. How many chances is soul given? There's essentially two main approaches to this. The Zohar seems to suggest 4 chances, but other places suggest 1,000 chances. The general way to reconcile this is that if a person does not make any movement, he does not do anything, he's given 4 chances. But if at least he makes some progress, a tiniest bit. Remember, we said a person has to keep coming back until he finishes all 613 and finishes all the 613 spiritual limbs of his soul and receives all the Torah that he needs for all eternity. So he can have up to 1,000 because he's at least moving. He's at least going in the right direction. These are questions, though. Just maximize this life. What's the practical takeaway of this? Maximize this life, my friends. Maximize it. Surround yourself with positive people, with positive ideas. Make sure that your days count. That your days count. You wake up in the day, you feel that you're going in a direction, you're making positive movement, you're becoming aware of the things that are my challenges, you're becoming sensitive to your strengths, and you're focusing on those. Can a husband and wife come back together? They can, yes. What about delaying burial? That's not a good thing. The Gemara says in Moed Katan, Chav Ches, and Baba Kama, in Pei Beis, Amid Beis, that we believe in the Torah that a body should be buried as soon as possible. It's very important. There's a lot of reasons for that. We're not going to talk about it now. We'll talk about it another time. We should all have long lives until 120, Bezrat Hashem, Amen. The body should be buried as quickly as possible. It's very, very important. You can wait a little bit for certain family members, but it should really be, it's a pain for the soul, because the soul is only given a certain amount of rest once the body is in the ground. That kind of like spooks people out even thinking about that. I want to tell you that it's a well-known thing that Baron Rothschild had a custom that, every one of us, we learn Musar, personal development, how to be a better person. And what do? We usually open up in Mesilas Yesharim, something nice. We learn it, try to integrate it. So he had a custom that he had a room in his house that it was a dirt kind of room, straight, but didn't have any tiling on it. Even though he had a big mansion, he definitely had money to put tiles down. And there was kind of a hole in the room, about 6 feet deep. And he would go into this pit, and he would line it for about 20 minutes a day, and it was his grave. And it was just a way of kind of, looking around, feeling the cool, damp, warm earth around you, kind of claustrophobic in there, and just realizing that, time is coming. After 120 years, Bezrat Hashem, and I'm going to come back here. This is going to turn into worm food. And whatever I accomplished in my life is going to live on forever. So, maybe previous generations could do this. Nowadays, guys are like, oh my goodness, that's wild. But if you're a bit of a solid individual, you kind of realize that is a way of waking up a person. Am I wasting my time? Or am I really trying to maximize life? So a burial in reincarnation, it says, don't do that. Because it could be that soul on that day has to get reincarnated, but he can't if it's not buried. So it could be that it's being preventing this person from coming back because, so it's very, very important to very quickly. As far as can souls come back into animals and plants, the answer is yeah, not a simple topic. Generally, when a soul comes back into animals and rocks and plants, it's aware of it and there's a pain because it can't get out. And there's a certain amount of time that it's allocated to be there. Again, these are way beyond us in the details. You can't go to that rock and say, oh, bro, but the Arizal could. And there's many stories that the Arizal would go around and he would see souls and plants and he would see souls and he would say certain Kabbalistic prayers and certain Tehillim and certain Psalms, and that would pull them out. And Mishnah is the same letters as Neshama, and pull out the Arizal was walking around doing crazy stuff. Like, in the real glory days of Tzfat, it was happening, my friends. People say, like, what would you like to, if you could go back to one era in time? In the mid-1500s in Tzfat, and also like 1750s in Mezhbich. Oiv Yisrael, the Baal Shem Tov, Balatanya, Rabbi Nachman, in Mezhbich, in Ukraine, in the icy, freezing winters of Ukraine. Those are kind of two highlights that I think about. It's kind of a fun thing also, you can think about it too. By the way, if you think that there's a certain place that you really relate to, it could be you were there. That's why you were so, you relate to it so much. I think about the Holocaust a lot. And I used to have a lot more dreams and just, I feel like I was there. I feel like there's a certain, can I tell you details? No, there are images that come, but there's a certain general feeling. And if a person is quiet with themselves, they start to hear, and that can inspire you in this lifetime. If there was wrongs that were happening then, that you can make sure that you feel connected to those, to fixing those wrongs and to doing certain things. And if you feel connected to Tzfat in the 1600s, the 1500s, that it could be that there's things that were happening there that you should be connecting to and learning about and using that now as a way of helping you in this lifetime. It's brought down in the Sefer Haredim, a famous Maisa, that there was a man that was basically getting ready to fight an ox. Back in Spain, they had these ox fights and running with the bulls and things like that. So this ox was getting prepared for a big fight, and the ox was being pedigreed for it. And the night before the fight, there was a man who passed away, and he came to his son in a dream. And he came to his son in a dream, and he said, my son, for various transgressions that I did in my life, I was told that I had to come back as an ox. I'm inside this ox that's getting ready to fight, and I'm very worried that tomorrow I'm going to get hurt. It's going to be a big pain for me. I need you, and heaven has allowed me to reveal this to you. I need you to go and take all your money and buy this ox, redeem it, save it from this fight. And I need you to take this money, and I need you to buy the ox, and I need you to take it to get a kosher shechita, a kosher slaughter, done in all the best, with all the highest levels of kashrut, and take the meat of this ox and give it to the Torah scholars to eat Lokavet Shabbos Kodesh. And of course they're going to make brachas and think, and they're going to elevate my soul through the eating of this ox, through the meat. And Kach Hava, there's many, many mysteries, way more than we could ever talk about. This is just the beginning to appreciate this topic of how real it is. We completely believe in it. And the main takeaway for us now is, first of all, just to see how big the Torah is, and to see that there's things I can do now practically in my life in order to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for the best eternity our families for the best eternity, our communities for the best eternity, helping each other all get to have the best eternity, and all of humanity to have the greatest position for all of eternity. And Bezrat Hashem, we should see that unfolding with Mashiach Tzidkeinu B'mher V'yameinu. Amen. A wonderful day, Chevron. Tomorrow we're going to talk about things they ask you in heaven.